Hello, my most amazing artists. So welcome back to week 2 of your Cityscape prints project. Last week, we painted a piece of paper using warm colors in the sky and cool colors in the water. This week, we are going to be actually drawing our cityscape, and there's a few things you need to know before you draw your cityscape today. So all we need today is paper, a pencil, and an eraser, okay? But just so you guys know, next week I am going to be using a foam printing plate. And this is what it looks like. It's just a piece of foam, but I found a really good alternative that you can use, and it is foam plates, or I found a pack of 30 foam trays at the Dollar Tree. And what I've done with these, because we don't want that dip, you know how they have kind of a dip in them, I just cut a rectangle out of it, and it's going to work exactly the same as this printing plate. Okay, these are a little bit more expensive, but it works just the same, guys, trust me. Okay, so I wanted to tell you that because today when we draw our cityscape, our paper needs to be the same exact size as our foam plate. Okay, so since we are going to be printing these, we are going to transfer this drawing to our foam plates. And I don't want to get into too much detail about that today because that'll be next week, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that I will be using a piece of foam to transfer the drawing that we do today onto it. Okay, so it needs to be the same size. All right, for me, I think this is 4 inches by 6 inches, so I'm just gonna cut my paper to be that same size so that next week when I transfer my drawing to this plate, it will be the correct size. Next week, we will be transferring this drawing to our piece of foam, and then the next week, so in 2 weeks, we are actually going to print it onto our painting, which is going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see how these turn out. I know they're going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, before we get started today, let's go ahead and say our class mantra all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. My mantra: I am positive, I am creative, I am mindful, I am amazing, I am an artist. All right, guys, now that you know all the materials that you need, let's go ahead and get started. And depending on how big your painting is or your coloring that you did last week, where we painted the sky and the water, that's how big your rectangle is going to be. So for instance, for me, this piece of paper is 12 inches by 12 inches. So I have a piece of foam that is 6 inches across. So I can print, whenever we print this, I can print this twice. I can print it here and I can print it here. Okay, so it's gonna fit pretty nicely. So you'll want to keep that in mind whenever you are cutting your foam piece out. So you can measure it to make it fit within your skyline. That's what this is going to be, okay? So we want our cityscape to be able to fit. I don't have a piece of foam that's big enough to fit across this whole piece of paper. So I just did 6 inches across so that I can print it twice to get a cityscape all the way across. If you're not able to get a piece of foam like this, then of course you can just opt to practice your drawing today on another piece of paper. Do not draw on this yet. And next time we can put our drawing onto our painting, okay? We'll go over that next time. But if you're just not able to get any foam like this, then you can just practice your cityscape today on a piece of paper. All right, and we can draw it on our painting later. Now I'm going to get rid of all this stuff because really all I need today is my practice paper where I'm going to draw my cityscape, pencil, and an eraser. All right, I just zoomed you guys in a little bit since this is a smaller piece of paper. I want you to actually be able to see what I'm drawing. So I just have a few sheets here in case I mess up or I don't like it. I can try a few different kinds of designs because remember, this is your cityscape. So you want to kind of add your own creative flair on it, all right? We don't just want rectangles, okay? Think of other shapes that you could possibly use. Remember, we're using lines and shapes to draw our cityscape. All right, we don't want just one big building. We want a few different buildings at different heights. So we want some tall buildings, we want some shorter buildings, some medium-sized buildings, okay? So I guess I'm just going to start out with some rectangle shapes. Remember, we want to keep these drawings pretty simple, okay? Because if we add too many tiny details, then whenever we print this, it will get a little bit lost, okay? So I've just done 2 buildings so far, and I'm just kind of sketching out some ideas. I might not go with this one. I'm not exactly sure yet. We will see. But as you notice, my buildings are all touching. They're all right next to each other. We don't want to leave any gaps in between our buildings, okay? And then I want a taller one. Tall, skinny one. And maybe I just want a shorter one down here. Okay? So that is the basis of a cityscape, really, is just a bunch of rectangles that are different heights. And you can go in and maybe instead of a flat roof, you want it to have like a triangular roof where it comes up into a triangle like that. And I think I actually really like that. And I think I want, instead of having one big one here, I think I want to do some smaller ones with some tall, skinny, triangular roofs, okay? So whenever we're drawing in pencil, we want to remember a little catchphrase, draw it light until you get it right, okay? That basically means do not press down very hard with your pencil, because then if you do and you make a mistake, it'll be a little bit harder to erase it and you'll still be able to see that line, okay? We're gonna draw it really light until you're happy with it, and then you can go back in and make it darker. All right, I'm kind of liking how this shape is going. I like some having some triangular roofs and some having some rectangular roofs. What other roofs could we possibly do? Triangle, rectangle, square. What about a curved roof? Could you do that? Sure, that actually looks pretty good. So I think I'm gonna do a curved roof on this one too. Remember, when Miss McGuire assigns you projects, we should always try to make it our own, okay? You shouldn't look like mine. It shouldn't look like the person next to you, all right? You are your own artist, so try to make your artwork unique to who you are as an artist. So I'm gonna go in and use some more diagonal lines. These are called diagonal lines. Those lines here that are kind of slanted to be the roof for that building. And since this is a dome, it's gonna come down to like an ellipse shape. Remember ellipse shapes that we did for our Sandra Silberswig project? Just like that. All right, so those are my roofs. We can just keep adding lines and we can start adding some windows. Okay. I think I want this one to be kind of like a little townhouse. And I don't want my windows to be too small, because remember, we don't want this drawing to get too busy or too crowded with a bunch of little details, okay? That's gonna make it very hard whenever we try to print it later, okay? So my buildings are pretty big, and I am using up this whole entire piece of paper, okay? I'm not drawing little teeny tiny buildings down at the bottom. I am using this whole paper because whenever we transfer it to our piece of foam, we want it to cover up most of the area of our foam, okay? That's just like with any artwork that you do. You don't want to leave a lot of white space, okay? Because we're trying to make this look as interesting as possible, and if we just have little teeny tiny buildings at the bottom, you're going to be left with a lot of white space at the top, and it might look a little bit plain, a little bit boring, and that is the farthest thing from what we want. Now I'm going to add a door to this building. All right. You can add some shingles on there. As you can see, I just used some simple squares for my windows on this townhouse, and I went back in with a vertical line and a horizontal line crossing over each other. That's actually called perpendicular lines right there, and it makes like a plus sign. All right, let's go to the next building. I think I want this building to have smaller windows on it, but I still want them to be squares. So I'm just gonna draw some squares all on this building. All right, and maybe I want to add some more details to my roof up here. So I'm just gonna add some curved lines up at the top. All right. So far, I am liking how this is turning out. Let me try to think. I think I'm gonna look up some inspirational pictures on Google just to kind of remind me of what buildings look like, what kinds of shapes I could use, what kinds of lines I can use. Google is a great resource whenever you're drawing, as long as we don't copy exactly what picture you're looking at, but just use it as inspiration. Okay. Ooh, I see some interesting things. That's giving me some ideas for different shapes of windows instead of just using squares all the time. We could actually do a semicircle, so that's just half of a circle. Like that. That makes it look a lot more interesting up there. Okay, so really play around with the different shapes that you can use. And for this building, I think I want to do like some long, skinny rectangles for my windows. I just decided that I want to experiment with a different shape of a rooftop, because I saw a picture of one that kind of looks like that, but I draw it a little bit too big, so I'm going to erase it. And that's why we draw it light till we get it right, so in case we make a mistake, it can be easily erased. I thought this roof was pretty cool and interesting. It's different than all my other roof shapes, so I wanted to give it a go. All right, and I'm just going to use more lines and shapes to add details to this building. And it looks like after I get done with this building, I only have one more building to go. And I'm going to put this one down here, and I want it to be a triangle roof. Alright, so here is my finished drawing of my cityscape. I'm pretty happy with this because I feel like I got a pretty good amount of detail without adding too much detail. Alright, so I used a variety of different shapes, semicircles, ellipses, I used even a pyramid shape here, circles, squares, rectangles. I really should see you use a variety of different shapes. We shouldn't just see squares or just see circles, okay? So mix it up a little bit, and that is all we are going to do today. All right, and just as a reminder, next week I will be using a piece of foam to transfer this drawing onto, okay? If you aren't able to get a piece of foam, then next week I'll let you know of some alternatives that you could do instead. Alright, I hope you guys have a lot of fun using a bunch of different lines and shapes to draw your cityscape. I know it's going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!